Weeders, been with this club about 17 years, I guess. Did a lot of towing. I don't do that anymore. I'm just going to kind of observe and comment.
Ran away. They brought me in to check you out.
Good to see some faces of the past. I'm not flying anymore, but they've asked me to offer some of my mistakes from the past, of which I'll pass along to you maybe eventually, but we don't have time to do that today. One of the things in the previous meeting that I thought about and we didn't get time to comment on, I will now, and that is, I want you to think about this. Where is the most highly possibility of a mid-air collision in the pattern? In the pattern, Lynn.
Opposing bases.
That works. Let's say this is our runways and this is north and this is east. We have power traffic coming in like this, landing here. We got two runways here. We got gliders coming in like this, landing here. Where would be the most likely? Right here. Think about this. You can't see one another coming at you at the same altitude. What can we do about that?
Communication.
There has to be something we can do about that. My thought, and I ask for your suggestion, gliders should do this, never cross that wind line. Power planes never cross that wind line. I see people doing this all the time. All the time. Bad deal. It'll happen sooner or later.
I would temper that with the reminder that stall spin accidents, that's set up for a stall spin, trying not to cross the center line. Now you slew, you can bank, accelerated stall. So I think that would be a secondary technique. If I were to cross the center line, I'd cross the center line rather than stall. Maybe roll out and check over there, but that's a typical place where you stall and hit the
You're
ground.
saying right about it here.
Right in here. So attempting to tighten the turn so as not to cross the runway center line
That's
or get
all-
over in that area for
But that's
parallel
all a
runways.
part of planning to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. You know, you come in here, you don't plan to overshoot that. You would normally plan to stay on this side, so you cut that corner short at, so you don't. But I agree, yeah, if you cross over that, then you're gonna be into that situation. Good point. Any other suggestions? Quickly, and we'll move on.
One thing I noticed is the tow planes tend to fly a lot shorter approaches than the gliders, so that kind of builds in a stagger. In the tow planes, obviously, we are a lot heavier and we can get down a lot quicker. Those of you who are comfortable, short approaches tend to mitigate that a little bit.
Good enough. Point well made. We'll move on. What we want to do with everybody in this club, I think, is share your mistakes. Where can you go that you could share a mistake and learn from somebody else's mistake? I want to tell you what I did wrong today so you don't do the same thing. We look after one another in that way.
I think force yourself to take a break. It's when you're tired. It's when I make mistakes.
And you may not recognize it. And I'm sitting there on the ground and your landings are looking a little bad. Hey, you need a break. That's it. Wow, good point. That sort of thing. We'll
You
move on.
use the bathroom, though. Sometimes you go out, go a few more toes, but that's a distraction.
Absolutely. It is for me every 5 minutes. That's why I don't fly tow planes anymore. Yeah, things to think about in that way. Share your mistakes and get somebody else's solution to it. Like that. that's the culture we'd like to get going in regards to safety. One announcement, and I'm just doing stuff as I think about it because I'm not too well organized. So I'm just rattling off stuff that I think of here. And I've already forgot what I was just talking about. But, there's been arrangements made that you tow pilots don't have to worry about oil changes. We're going to pay for it and take the plane and have them inspect the engines and so forth. We think that will do a better job than don't want to be mechanics. Right?
I like that.
You like that?
I like that a lot.
Absolutely. Okay. Just want to let you know that's here. The other thing is sort of a pet peeve of mine that I would just mention, and that is cooling that engine going off tow. There's a lot of different opinions out there about how you do that and so forth. We have written procedures that are written up in the tow plane instructions. I can go over them now, but I don't think we have time. But I'm telling you that when you exceed speeds coming down and you put more air through it and you're not putting fuel into it, it's the delta T on those engine heads that makes the difference. If you cool it too fast, the metal doesn't have time to adjust to that, and so it cracks. And every time that happens, it's about $1,200–1,400 by the time you get through with one jug. Cost of flying goes up. Ron Poe.
I was at the convention and we talked about this in the tow pilots meeting, and there were several guys and they all were adamant that you can do harm to the engine by pulling the throttle back. What they said, I don't know if it's true, I don't know, but there's several of them, they said the shock cooling takes place when you put that throttle to the firewall and you heat those cylinders up really quick, because you're heating them up quicker than you're cooling them down, even if you pull the power all the way off and start down. That's what they said. I don't know. I'm still gonna keep the power, I told them, I said, I'm still gonna keep the power up when I come down.
Right.
But that's what they told me. They said that shock cooling happens when you push the throttle forward, not when you pull it back.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's a part of it.
I would disagree with that because we do that all the time on touch and go landings in power airplanes. But we do cool them down slower, and tow planes don't crack cylinders more than premium.
well, that's what I tried to tell them. I said, well, you know, I told them, I said, well, I'm still gonna continue to keep power on when I come down. But there were several of them that were pretty adamant about it, that you can't. And the shock cooling, I mean, the shock on the cylinders come when you put the throttle forward, not when you pull it off.
Every airplane does that.
Well, I
Yeah.
know.
So
I don't know how we can avoid that. We're going full power on takeoff.
Well, you can't.
Yeah,
You can't. But like I told them, I said, I'm still gonna keep power on coming down.
Yeah. No, and
It's
that's the
been
thing to
working,
do.
it's been working. We haven't been cracking cylinders too much.
No, we only did that at the end of 2,000 hours on 82 Zulu, and one of the members at that time said, hey, I put it to red line and I come down and I keep power in it. But it's a function of the speed and the amount of air put through that engine.
Yeah, you
And
don't
we
want no
cracked
red
2
line.
cylinders. Yeah, it was at the end of its lifetime, but that's when we paid for it.
Yeah, if I can add my bits of wisdom, I know I ain't been towing that long, but I've noticed that the Pawnee, I'll stage it for about 30 seconds or so, and then I can pull it back to idle, and the temperature only changes a couple degrees. Because I'm not going that fast when I descend, I still keep my airspeed relatively low, and that seems to work out quite well.
Well, right.
That's the oil
Okay, enough
temperature,
said
right?
about that. What was my other thing I was going to mention? Oh.
There's no cylinder head temperature.
Huh?
Are you cylinder head temperature you're talking about?
Oh, and my.
There's an oil temperature.
Yeah. Did we just put in a CHG on the audio?
One of them, I think A2 Zulu is somewhere here broken.
Yeah, I think,
For
I
years.
think it is, but 3.7 Golf has a CHD,
Yeah.
and it takes about 3 minutes off a tow at full, or at normal power for it to cool below 300. So I do the same in both planes.
Yeah.
It's gotta be real close.
Yeah.
Remember, on 820, you can lean that right on the ground because of the design of that carburetor.
Well, you have to, it'll foul.
You have to, right? It fouls plugs. So there is, go ahead.
So what's the technique then for avoiding
Oh,
shock
okay.
heating?
Here's
on
what has
takeoff?
been recommended. Once you get off tow,
No, I'm talking about taking off now. He's right up. When I fly my own airplane, I never put the throttle up. I always crank it up. I use a vernier just to avoid shock heating.
yeah.
So what's the technique to avoid that with the?
No, you gotta go full throttle.
Takeoff, you gotta go full throttle. You got a glider behind you.
Yeah, but what about holding the brakes? Holding the brakes and getting up to half power or something like
No,
that?
give her the power.
Well, that's what I've been doing, but I just don't know if anybody's got a technique different than mine.
The technique coming down is once you're off tow, is to go ahead for a count of about 3 to get that ring away from the glider, wherever he's at. Then reduce the power to 2100, go full flaps, keep the airspeed at 70 or 80, all the way down, all the way to flare. And reduce that about every 15, 30 seconds. Another 250 RPM, do that about 3 or 4 times. That's the best you can do. Okay, we're gonna move on.
So how quick does shock heating happen? I mean, as soon as you go full power, is it gonna shock heat it?
That's not a concern. I don't think that's a concern.
Because I know in 3.7 Golf, when I'm departing at 200 feet, is when I'll pull it back to 25 for the climb. I mean, that way it's not on the stops the whole time you're climbing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are we mainly doing that for noise?
Yeah, noise abatement. If we do some in 8 Zulu, we pull it back at 100 RPM.
We have another problem on noise, particularly with the Cessna.
Yeah.
It is tearing up our ears there sitting around. I need some suggestions from us and let's all figure it out. My recommendation or my thinking is, but that's not solidified yet, is here's the shed. Here's the start line. We take off this way. Can we keep the Cessna at some reduced RPM, let's say about 2400, until it gets past the shed? Now go ahead and increase your RPM and let her rip down here, but you're protecting the people down here. That would be my only solution to it. Are there any other thoughts?
That's gonna be a little bit of a challenge with some of the glass ships that have CG hooks. Because they want high speed as soon as they can get it. So,
Let's
with the
not care about-
Blaniks and the Schweitzers, that might be okay, but some of the other ships, that's gonna be a big problem for them.
Well, it also, wind is always a factor too.
Yeah.
You know, how much tailwind do you have, blah, blah, blah.
But it's also a safety factor
You're
too, if you
adjusting.
just go full power and go, then you don't have a safety, you're reducing your safety
It's
margin.
an unnecessary movement.
Yeah.
Well, but what about everybody's ears there?
Noise
talk about
is
the
secondary
noise
to safety,
for
I'm
the
sorry, it
members?
just is.
That's not a
What if somebody's
problem.
having a really hard
The
day?
other thing is to get a 3-bladed prop and do all that, and that's thousands of dollars, 10,000.
That's not.
The noise is a problem for the pilot, not anybody standing on the ground. There's no risk of hearing loss.
I know, I had one of the members tell me that they wanted the initial power so they could get some air under the glider wings. So for most of the summer, I mean, I was applying brakes and flying full power before I released. And then Mr. Readers came to me and he said, hey, let's, you're flying 337, things loud as a Harley. Why don't you, slow up the power? And before he had told me that, I actually had a weak link break twice on the same day from towing, just because, that was a lot of pressure. When you got full power and you release brakes, there was a lot of pressure to the weak links. I had you burst twice on me and it scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, we stopped that process.
So I know, yeah,
You just add power, you don't rev up with the brakes and let go.
Right.
yeah, they both told me that, and I actually really enjoyed the slow power up. Just felt safer. Didn't feel like I was.
Or think of the, when you're towing the Schweitzer, how we like to move ahead a little bit before we slam their tail wheel down.
Right.
If you pull out too fast. You can do that with glass ships too, but generally with a glass ship, don't have your brakes on it, just hit full power and
About
go.
3 seconds works good from idle to full,
Yeah.
is kind of the rule I use.
Yeah. And they get delivered, it doesn't have to go like pick them up, but.
How many of you are glider pilots and power tow pilots? Okay, so those of you that are glider pilots can re-endorse your tow pilot endorsement by doing glider flights, correct? But you need to put that in your logbook. If you're going to re-endorse yourself as a tow pilot, the FAA has, 24 months for towing. The club has actually looked at 12 months. So if you're not a glider pilot, you're just power, you need to do 3 simulated tows, and we'll bring the sports club over to North Plains and let you get those out of the way and re-endorse you. Okay? I'm going to make this really fast, but the endorsement is important if you're a glider pilot. Put in your logbook, I'm re-certifying myself, I've done 3 glider flights within such and such a time. So I'm still a good legal tow pilot. We mentioned the oil is going over to Danny's at Stark's. They're going to do the oil changes for us. They do oil analysis on both airplanes. So they're really following how many, the composition of the oil, if there's, whatever is failing in the engine is picked up pretty easily. Somewhere down the line, we have two airplanes. 82 Zulu has over 10,000 hours on it. But it's like a new airplane. It's been completely rebuilt. The engines, we're probably looking somewhere down the line. It would be nice if we don't have an overhaul at the same time for both engines. Yes, sir.
Let's remind everybody, 82 Zulu is primary. I was hoping you were going to finish that sentence before
Exactly.
you called me, but 82 Zulu is primary because at the beginning of last season, both engines were at just about the same time since overhaul, and we want to stagger them for the expense. We're looking at $28,000 to $30,000 to overhaul an engine. So let's put time on 82 Zulu to the extent that we can and let 37 Gulf sit there.
Well, if you could do that on the engine for 28,000, 30,000, that would be great. But we're looking closer to 40.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
In the interest of furthering the safety culture by exposing my ignorance, which one is 82 Zulu?
The Pawnee.
The Pawnee.
The Pawnee. Ah, that's my fault.
I don't think we have to talk about flying. We've been through a lot of this stuff. It's really an honor to fly with you guys and ladies. You're the best pilots I know. This is the Top Gun of aviation right here. We're going to get some hats for our tow pilots. Maybe they'll be yellow or something that'll really stand out. We want to identify our tow pilots on the field so they can see if you have tow pilots over here or there.
What if we don't want them to be identified as a tow pilot?
Don't wear your hat.
We'll get you a reversible.
Since we have two really good tow planes, we have 2 tow planes that are really, they're both in great shape. They're ready to go right now. As soon as the field is dry enough, we'll put the tow planes there. They're going to be out of their hangars at the end of this month. If we have to leave them at Twin Oaks to bring them over, we'll do that, but they'll be there. For you to get some of the rust off, if you're going to tow a certain day, come out maybe a little early if you like, do your precautionary takeoff, and then do another 3 or 4 or 5 landings so you can really get in the zone. Okay? We want you to be good and comfortable before you pick up your first tow. There's no real currency requirement. You're not carrying passengers and those things, but you want to be in the zone. Okay? And anything you can do to help the other tow pilots is great. I have one question for you, and then I'm done. Is there anything that you can think of that we don't cover, that we should cover, or in training or anywhere else for this whole experience that could make it better, excuse me, and safer?
Has Cessna got a transponder yet?
The Cessna does, but
Cessna does,
doesn't.
Pawnee doesn't.
The
Still
Pawnee does
doesn't,
not.
okay.
I have one for sale.
We actually have a few transponders laying around. I don't know if they're going to be mounted. Is there anything we can do, kind of the board or the people that stay in top of the towing. Is there anything that we can do that's going to make this a better operation?
I talked to Kerry Richards real briefly, and one suggestion he made, which might help out the glider side, is putting flarms in the tow planes. You wouldn't physically be able to probably hear the flarm yourself in the tow plane, but the other glider could see you if they have a flarm. And that might help this opposing base situation a little bit too. So just an idea that someone mentioned, I'll throw it out there. I got mixed feelings about it personally, but.
I do too. Yes, sir.
I just had a quick question, actually. One thing that I found myself coming up, like, it wasn't covered today in any of the sessions. When you've got all your gliders coming down and they're taking up all the runways and you want to hold, I know you've got the golf course to the northeast, you've got the homes and people who are sensitive to the northwest, and then you've got the ILS pattern. And so I usually just went about a half mile north, stayed about 1,000 feet, so I wasn't anywhere near that ILS, and just circled. But then I really pissed off that horse ranch that's right under me. So they were calling, they called in all day and complained, even though I'd only done it once. So where do you want us to hold when we've got people coming down our way, you know?
We go over on the west side. This is kind of our let-down area.
Okay, yeah.
But you can break it up too. You can
Yeah.
go up over the hills.
You mean stay north of 26?
Yeah, stay north of Highway 26.
Yeah,
Just
okay,
north of the
okay.
Y is good for this.
Oh,
North of the Y works.
North of the Y.
But if you see a lot of traffic coming down, you don't have to go down for a holding pattern right away.
Yeah.
Do some turns, also in terms of avoidance. Rather than just coming straight down, heading back to the field, go ahead and throw some turns in there. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't want you to overrun a glider and come down on top of it. They are hard to see.
Yeah.
Or another power plane from Hillsborough, because there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're going to look for another safe season. Bob may have a couple more comments. If you don't have any more questions, if you think of anything that we should do, we're going to try to take care of most things by correspondence because we're missing about 10 of our tow pilots right here, so we'll pick them up. If you need to fly the Sports Cub, let me know. I'll bring it to North Plains and we will have it there. It's much cheaper for us to get it there and do 3 or 4 people than it is to fly from Twin Oaks to North Plains because we're going to practice at North Plains. That's where we do our simulations.
so are you getting a scheduled day then that you're gonna do this with everybody?
Yeah, you've already done yours.
Yeah, okay.
But
At this point.
yeah, we'll
I
do
just
that.
want to fly it for proficiency, I don't really care where.
Okay.
Bob, one quick thing.
Yes, sir.
I'm videoing this, and I think Kaz is, if we put up a private link so the people that aren't here could watch it, that'd be fun?
Sure. Sure. I don't, we aren't covering everything. We have a good procedures guide. We don't want to bore you.
I know somebody emailed though and asked if it could be put up, so I'll do that here.
I did get a number of emails from our pilots, which, let me just add this too. One of our pilots works for a firm and flies a lot of jets and had a complete catastrophic engine failure. And as Greenwich tells me, they fly like pianos, right? And he said the training and all the landings that he did in the Pawnee really set him up. He knew how to use the rudder and get it down. So it's all those thousands of landings you do can come in very handy.
That's what Sullenberger said.
Yeah.
Bob and I, the two Bobs, are kind of trying to share a herding of the tow pilots, and sometimes it's like herding cats. So if anybody wants to be chief tow pilot, talk to us.
You're not dead yet.
You're upright and breathing.
A couple of the other things, you may be wondering, well, you take off here, don't turn until you get above 200 feet. I see people, hey, get above 100 feet, crank it around. Keep that airspeed and a standard rate turn all the way around. And why do we go over the highway?
Advertisement.
That brings us more rides than anybody.
But it also gives you a margin of safety,
That's right.
get you back to the field.
That's right. So don't tow anybody farther away from the field than they can glide back.
Yes, please.
Keep that in mind. If you have to come out here,
Unless you
here's
don't like
the Y, and they want to go up the high lines this way or make the turn this way, do a circle here, get some more altitude before you get out of it. A 233 cannot make it back to our field at the Y if the rope breaks at 1,500 feet. He can't even get back straight in. much less
What's a
pack.
233?
It's a training glider,
That's the high wing
high wing flying brake.
Schweitzer.
20 to 1.
That's all I've got. Is there any other comments?
With a fair tailwind, say 7 or 8 knots, and you're towing that 103,
Yeah.
if you don't start a turn before 200 feet, you're gonna go past the road, okay? So you wanna stay on this side of the road, you wanna stay west of the road, or you want to be always waiting until 200 feet to start the turn?
Well, I think that's a good question. Let's have some other input into it. My answer to that would be, I don't care. If you have to go past the road, go past the road. I don't want to see that turn less than 200 feet. Now, that's me. We haven't set that in stone yet. Somebody else. Good question.
Bob, you got something to say?
Well, I was just going to go with the noise issue, because when you're making the turn and you have the golf course perpendicular to the prop, it gets really noisy there. And we've timed it, we've done it many different ways. 23-23, and doesn't make hardly any difference in its climb rate in 3.7 golf. But go ahead and climb out, and then as you make the turn, go ahead and dial the prop back and your speed back, so by the time the prop hits perpendicular to the golf course, you've already quieted it down. I think the noise is what's going to really bug people out there more than anything else.
Big time.
And when we're doing 25, 30 tows, 4 days a week, that's a lot. And you can be at Skyport, and you can hear 3.7 golf when they're at full power above 2,000 feet.
You can't talk to one another here at the ops tent with 3.7 golf coming over at full blast. That sucker is really pounding your ears.
It's kind of skywagon-ish. Yeah, I mean, just as soon as you can get the prop down, do so.
I have a question.
Good point.
So I've been taking off before in the process, and I had a glider on left downwind, and he was telling me to hurry up, basically, and make my turn way early. He didn't like it that I didn't want to make the turn before 200 feet. So he was like, "Tow pilot, turn now, turn now." I'm just like, man, I'm not 200 feet yet. I'm not going to turn. You know, so I mean, what is it when we're interacting with someone who is making that base to final? Let's say that they came in a little sooner than they thought. How do you interact with that?
You should be
always
affecting
you
your
can always
season.
declare emergency to anything when it's within your best judgment.
Oh,
Do a
yeah.
slide
We're
turn.
talking
Yeah,
about
do a slide turn.
operation.
You just pull it over 15, 20 degrees.
Yeah, just like doing, okay, sure.
You don't have to go straight out.
What does it hurt if you start your turn a little early? Nothing.
Does it affect the glider if the rope
No.
breaks?
In fact, it helps the glider.
helps the glider.
It helps the glider.
It
because
actually
then
helps
you have
us.
your button.
It helps us if you turn a little bit earlier, because that's less space between us and the threshold.
And just to reiterate, you don't have to make a bona fide crosswind turn out of 100, just kind of dogleg it out to the left,
That's
15,
right.
20
That's
degrees,
right.
and then resume your
That's
pattern
right.
after 200 feet.
Yeah.
But you actually help the glider by deviating a little bit, so if the rope breaks,
Yep.
when they make that turn back, they're already lined up the runway because you drug them off to the side a little bit.
Yeah,
If you lose power in the tow plane, it will also help you get back.
Yep.
that's right. You're not gonna get back from there.
I would differentiate, this is a great discussion, educational for me. I would differentiate two concepts. One is an absolute abort point, beyond which if you violate, you're probably going to die. Or you think you won't die, but you might die. The other was a guideline. So I sense this is a guideline. When all the conditions are correct, you need to modify the guideline. That's when you use judgment. Now, just give you an example of a hard abort point. When I fly a power airplane, I can only qualify this, I guess, for one airplane. It's the engine failure on takeoff. My minimum is 800 feet. That means if the altimeter reads 790, I don't rationalize. I don't
Going
think, I
back
just
and
act like
trying
a
to get
robot.
that
At that point, I have trained myself to be a robot, and I look for some place to land straight ahead. 801 feet, I can turn around, don't stall your man back. So that's one way of training yourself. Everybody wrestles with this question in aviation safety. How do you get people to not make rationalizing judgments, like I can handle this weather, I can handle this turn. One way is to train yourself, check the vehicle at the door and train yourself that that's it, I will not violate this by 1 foot. So
That's why we practice road brakes in the glider, practice, practice, practice. I mean, in the power plane, it's kind of, have to pull the power at somebody,
Yeah.
have them stall spin, you can't.
It would be
can't do
nice.
anything about it if they do it.
It would be nice to know, at least it was for me, what altitude do I have to be that I could make it back to this field with the tow plane?
It depends
can
on where you
figure-
are.
Well, but the other thing, you wanna know how much loss you're gonna assume in that. So on the way back from a glider tow sometime, line yourself up on the freeway there and chop the power from 2100 to 70 knots. That would be the same as the climb out. That's where, when the engine quit. And see what it takes to make a standard brake turn and back over the highway. And you say, oh, that's 500 feet. Well, guess what? You can convince yourself that way, right?
I'll say something too. I don't know if anybody's done this, but I'm working on my commercial and I'm almost ready for my check ride. But with my instructor, I had him, and you could do it alone, but I would probably be safer with an instructor. I had him do some, just killing the power while I'm climbing out. And it's shocking how quick the airplane will fall out of the sky.
You betcha.
So even at 500 feet, you're not gonna turn around and go back. And so unless you actually experience
pick
that yourself,
You gotta
it's,
pick somewhere out here. You can make a 90-degree turn and land this way.
Yeah.
Or this way, or straight ahead.
but when you're in a nose-high attitude and that engine quits, it's shocking how quick the airspeed disappears and you're coming down. So,
You really have to push it over, especially with an engine like this.
so experience that with an instructor, somebody in a safe environment, so that you know what, it'll shock the hell out of you.
The other thing that I recommend, and I'll shut up, it's over, and that is when you pour the power to it on takeoff, you know where that release is for your end of the rope brake, and you have your hand on it. Because you have less than a second to make up your mind should that glider canopy open and the glider pilot forgets to fly the airplane and he balloons way up and you're at only 200 feet, you're dead.
That's what you told me last year. As soon as you have your power set to full, then you reach and hold on to the other, to the release.
It'll save your life. I'm convinced of it. I've never had it happen, but I'm convinced of it.
Just, you may have seen this already, on gliding.co.uk, there's a really good video of this problem, of glider getting too high
Yeah.
and not releasing time. Just too slow a connection to show you here.
You should post that link.
Yeah, could
Just
you
go
send
on
us a link to
gliding,
that?
dial up British gliding, it'll lead you to gliding.co.uk and stuff for instructors, and there's 5 of these video scenarios that somebody forwarded me. This one's scarier than hell. I may quit film.
Yeah, it is, it's scary.
But it's a good, very good demo, and raises questions about how high you can actually survive this. I suspect you're right, 1 second or less
Say
reaction.
the website again?
Gliding.co.uk.
Be aware of where the tow rope is when you go into fuel.
Oh,
Yeah.
good point. There's a lot of stuff like that. You know, as you go in and you're towing during the day and you go to the fuel pump, where am I here? Oh, I'm right here. Here's the fuel depot. You've come back in and, oh, I need fuel. Well, first of all, you gotta stop over here if you're gonna do it this way. And that's a mistake a lot of us make, or have made in the past. Now you got this 200-foot rope across you. You've stopped here, you've checked the incoming traffic, right, before you cross the south runway? Sure we did.
And
But once you do that, then you taxi right up to it, straight in. Now I'm close and I can get it too. One guy already bought the prop when he taxied into it. The brakes didn't work. We don't want to do that,
I'm not
okay?
mentioning any names, are you?
It makes sense to me. And think about it. Come on around, drop the rope, and come this way. Because if that rope is sitting across that runway and a glider comes in, he grabs it. Sometimes, maybe sometimes not. You got away with it one time, will you in the future?
But it's still technically a fouled runway.
That's right. Whatever. The other thing is when you're midday fueling, and here's the fuel depot, park the airplane headed to the east. Why would we want to do that?
See incoming traffic.
See oncoming traffic.
That's
Two
right. When
gliders
you get
in.
ready to leave, you can see this incoming traffic. At the end of the day, though, when the tow plane is tied down over here to the east, get rid of your rope, taxi on around, check it out, and come in this way, refuel it there, get out and push the tail right back in there. By yourself.
Two.
Hey,
I felt like.
Maybe back surgery after that.
get somebody. Okay, just a few nuances of travel.
One of the things I did last year, and I don't know if it's a problem or not, but a lot of times when you're landing in midday to fuel, you'll land, if you'll taxi down off the end of the runway and go all the way around by the,
Ops.
no, not as far as ops, but right there by the containers.
Yeah.
And taxi around that cone, there's plenty of room for your wingspan, and then taxi down that edge to the fuel, your rope's out of the way. You could do that, or if there's people over there, when you go down there, as soon as you jump out of the tow plane, run and grab that rope and run it all the way back to the shed.
That's right, Tony taught you well.
Well, the whole point is get the rope off the south runway.
Hey, Bob?
I think you had somebody come in with a 2003 and yanked your tail around one time, and you had to have a
You know, when we
repair.
have the irrigation pipes down there across the road, what's the likelihood? I mean, really? Of using that little, and I'm talking the toast hook, not even the big Schweitzer hook, where the irrigation is, and picking it up and pulling all 5 pipes about 200 feet in the air. I mean, what's the likelihood of that happening?
If you're flying,
Done it.
End of the fifth.
What's the likelihood of being up to the fuel depth and someone waves you in and there was actually a glider stop, so I couldn't imagine anyone going on the north runway and then pulling over on the south runway and picking up the tow line with their 126 and jerking A2 Zulu around and actually hitting the wingtip.
Ooh, wow.
I know it cost me $80, but you know, I had to have that scratched on. I mean, those things happen. You think, 1,000,000 to 1? Believe me, we've done it. We've destroyed every tow plane we've had until about the last 6 or 7 years, yeah. So we don't want this year to be a bad year.
Communicate, get together, share your mistakes, help your buddy be safe. I don't know what else you could do. You know, good flying.
One last one.
Good.
After you've landed, I myself have started to practice of when I get to the end of the runway, you know, the cone's at the end of the runway, I'm either stopped or going so slow that I can take a look around, you know, about 270 degrees, because there's a lot happening up there, or things are getting ready to happen. You're still, when you're going 70 and you slow down real quick, 20 miles an hour feels like you're crawling, and I just see faster taxi out there, and that when they're going towards the staging area, then probably is justifiable.
Let me add about the brakes, because if you're taxiing too fast, I've had the brakes fail in 3 of our tow planes. 3 of them.
Bob, you're jinxed.
I just been in a lot. But, you know, when you hit, and this was our 2-place Pawnee, you press a brake and nothing happens. It takes you a moment to figure out what's going on. It really does. And you go, you just aren't used to it. You know, you're used to both brakes. And you go swinging the wing over the top of a glider. And you say, how close was that? But I've had it happen in 82 Zulu too. And especially if the brake pads get low, the puck will come out, the O-ring, and you have brake fluid everywhere. So one of my tests now, I think it's happened to me 6 times, is when you're on final and you're doing your kind of rudder dance, you know, getting ready for the landing, is check that you have brake pressure. Okay. Make sure you have brake pressure. It's otherwise I can tell you landing and you think you're coming on a runway and you're going to slow down and you put both brakes on and all of a sudden you're going sideways off the runway. So you can lose brake pressure during the flight. I didn't think that was possible, but it's happened.
That's the second time I've heard that this year. I got a buddy that flew in Alaska, and he said that he was flying one time and a water bottle got underneath his rudder pedal. And so when you're on the downwind, kick your rudder full to make sure you have that authority, and check your brakes at the same time.
Same way in a glider, yeah.
Wow.
Al, has anybody else had the window pop open on the Pawnee, the left
Yeah.
window?
Oh, sure.
About 200 yards into takeoff?
The actual little
Is there a
window
way
or the
to
whole?
fix that, tightening the handle, or is it just me not getting it in the
There's a
high spot?
sweet
Right
spot for
there.
getting that latch on the
Well,
nub.
here's
Yeah,
another thing
yes,
too,
yeah.
that sweet spot is with the handles almost 45 degrees up. But if you do that and it does pop, that handle will catch the door. You can't have it back at all or it will fall open. So you gotta rotate those handles up 45 degrees. Another thing is if you get in a wreck, God forbid, those things don't impale your head.
Right.
So rotate them up 45, and then if they do pop open, the handle will still catch the door
Wow.
from swinging
Good.
open.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Do not attempt to close.
Yeah, if it flies open, ignore it.
Airplane doesn't care if the window's open.
Well, I think that one
Streamline.
came
Just
open
gets
on
noisy.
somebody last year and damaged the airplane, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Another case, inevitably, a case where somebody's trying to close the door, the plane goes in the ground. Just gets noisy.
Fly the
Might cost you
airplane
half an
first.
hour.
The purpose of this meeting is tow-pilots signed up for the week's activities. You never get to talk to the rest of the bunch
Yeah.
unless you hold a meeting like this and share stuff.
Now, I was gonna ask, is this the only meeting we'll have all year? or can
Well,
schedule
why can't we
another,
do more?
Meet in the bar someplace?
Yeah, why can't we do that?
Tuesday meeting?
How would you
Yeah,
guys
I
like to meet, maybe, and this is only a suggestion, the first Tuesday night when we have the general meeting, meet an hour before at McMinimum's and let's
Yeah.
share our problems.
Just do it after so we can drink more.
Hey, that's way past noon. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.